Dr. Emily Anderson's coffee grew cold as she stared at the quantum oscillation readings on her lunar observatory monitors. The signal patterns made no sense. They defied every known law of physics she'd studied in her 15 years of quantum astronomy. "Robert, are you seeing this?" She called to her research partner through the station's comm system. The only response was static. The lights flickered, and her instruments went haywire. Through the observatory's reinforced windows, she watched as reality itself seemed to tear apart. The void between Earth and Luna split open like a wound in space, bleeding light that shouldn't exist. They emerged like crystal mountains breaking through an ocean of stars. Massive ships, their hulls composed of what appeared to be translucent, geometric patterns that caught and reflected sunlight in impossible ways. Emily's quantum sensors nearly overloaded from the energy signatures they were emitting. Her phone buzzed, not with its normal tone, but with a sound that made her teeth ache. Every screen in the observatory flickered to life simultaneously, displaying the same message. Primitive species detected. Submit to hegemony authority or face immediate extinction. Emily's hands trembled as she initiated the emergency protocol, broadcasting her readings to Earth's defense network. Her brother Michael, stationed at Mars Base 1, would be seeing this too. She tried to reach him, but all standard communications were being blocked. The next 12 hours were chaos. The UN Security Council convened an emergency session. Every major military power on Earth mobilized, though their most advanced weapons seemed laughably inadequate against the scale of the crystalline fleet. Emily noticed something strange in her readings. Periodic fluctuations in the ship's energy fields that seemed almost like breathing. She was recording these anomalies when humanity transmitted its response to the hegemony. The message was simple. We choose peace. Earth extends an offer of diplomatic relations and cultural exchange. The response came not in words, but in action. Emily watched in horror as a beam of coherent light, more brilliant than the sun, lanced out from the largest crystal ship. It struck Mars with surgical precision, exactly where Mars Base 1 stood. The entire installation, along with its 10,000 inhabitants, vanished in an expanding cloud of superheated plasma. Her brother's last message came through moments before the strike. They're ships. They're not just crystal. They're alive. The hegemony's next transmission was clear. Peace is for equals. You are not our equals. You are primitive. You are resources to be harvested. Resistance will result in further demonstrations. Emily's grief turned to cold fury as she analyzed the energy signature of the weapon that had just killed her brother. The beam had created a distinct pattern in the quantum field, one that matched the breathing-like fluctuations she'd noticed earlier. She immediately began encrypting and transmitting her findings to the only person she knew could help, Colonel James Murphy at the Earth Defense Initiative. Her message was brief. Their strength is their weakness. The crystal ships are living quantum matrices, and like any living thing, they have a resonance frequency. We just have to find it. The hegemony ships began moving toward Jupiter's moons, presumably to begin their resource extraction. They paid little attention to Earth's primitive satellites and monitoring stations. After all, what harm could simple observers do? Emily watched them go, her brother's last words echoing in her mind. The ships were alive. And if they were alive, they could die. She just had to figure out how to kill crystal gods. Colonel James Murphy stood in the heart of the Rocky Mountains, 3 miles below the surface, studying the holographic display of the hegemony's crystal ships. Dr. Emily Anderson's data played on an endless loop, showing the quantum signatures that rippled through their hull like heartbeats. "Show me the Mars attack again," he ordered, his voice carrying the weight of too many sleepless nights. The AI complied, replaying the devastating moment when Mars Base 1 vanished from existence. "Freeze it at point of impact." Murphy leaned forward, his weather-worn face illuminated by the hologram's blue glow. There, that resonance pattern. It's the same one Dr. Anderson detected in their idle state. Dr. Jessica Hayes, the project's lead quantum physicist, nodded. The ships don't just use crystal technology. They're grown from it. Each vessel is a single, massive crystalline organism. And like any crystal, Murphy continued, they'll have a breaking point. He turned to the assembled team of Earth's finest scientists and military strategists. Welcome to Project Echo, ladies and gentlemen. This is where we learn to shatter gods. The facility hummed with activity. In one lab, engineers tested prototype quantum resonators, their failures marked by the tinkling sound of shattered crystal samples. In another, computer experts worked to decrypt the fragments of data they'd managed to intercept from hegemony communications. Emily's voice came through the secure channel, transmitted from her new post at the Lunar Observatory. Colonel, the hegemony ships have begun their strip mining operation on Europa. Their crystal matrices are growing stronger with each resource they absorb. Murphy watched the feed from their cloaked satellites. The crystal ships had embedded massive, transparent tendrils into Europa's ice, draining something more than just physical materials. The moon's quantum signature was being altered at a fundamental level. They're not just mining resources, Dr. Hayes realized, her eyes wide. They're converting matter into their own crystalline structure. They're going to transform our entire solar system. Not if we stop them first. Murphy activated the facility's main display. Show me the latest test results from the resonance weapons. The screen filled with data streams and video feeds. Small-scale tests had proven promising. Their artificial crystal samples, grown to match the hegemony's quantum signature, could be shattered by precisely calibrated energy pulses. Sir, a young lieutenant called out, we're detecting new energy patterns from the enemy fleet. They're growing. The satellite feed showed it clearly now. The crystal ships were expanding, their geometric patterns becoming more complex as they absorbed Europa's resources. What had once been beautiful now seemed parasitic, a cancer of crystal and light spreading through their solar system. How long until they reach Saturn? Murphy asked. At their current rate of consumption and growth, 3 weeks, Emily's voice replied. Then they'll turn toward the inner planets. Earth will be last. They want us to watch everything we know turn to crystal before they come for us. Murphy made his decision. Dr. Hayes, begin production of the quantum resonators. Emily, keep tracking those energy signatures. The rest of you, prepare for Phase 2. He looked at the assembled team. The best minds Earth had to offer. We're going to give them exactly what they expect. A primitive species' desperate last stand. As the team dispersed to their stations, Murphy studied the hologram one last time. The crystal ships continued their methodical harvest of Europa, each pulse of energy making their matrix stronger, more complex, more perfect. And in that perfection lay their weakness, because perfect crystals had perfect resonance frequencies. All Murphy's team had to do was find the right note, and their symphony of destruction would begin. He just hoped they could figure it out before Earth became another crystal garden in the hegemony's collection. Major Lisa Reynolds watched the holographic display from her command chair as her fleet of outdated ships approached the hegemony's mining operation near Saturn. 20 vessels, each one looking like it had been cobbled together from spare parts and desperation. Perfect bait. All ships report ready, Major, her executive officer announced. Quantum probe payloads are armed and primed. Lisa allowed herself a small smile. The hegemony would see exactly what they expected. Primitive humans making a last, futile stand with inferior technology. They wouldn't notice the microscopic marvels hidden within each ship's hull, Dr. Anderson's greatest achievement yet. Begin recording, she ordered. Let's give them a good show. She keyed her fleet-wide channel. This is Major Reynolds. Remember your training. Make it look real, but don't get yourselves killed before the package is delivered." The crystal ships noticed them almost immediately. Their massive forms shifted, geometric patterns rippling with what Lisa had come to recognize as amusement. The hegemony's response was predictable. A warning shot that vaporized an asteroid half a kilometer wide. "Challenge accepted," Lisa muttered. "All ships, execute attack pattern Delta. Show them how primitives fight." Her fleet broke formation, each ship following pre-programmed flight paths designed to look like desperate improvisation. The hegemony ships responded with leisurely grace, their crystal weapons cutting through space with beautiful, deadly precision. The first human ship exploded, its reactor going critical in a spectacular display. But as the fireball expanded, it released its hidden cargo, millions of quantum-sensitive probes, each no larger than a dust mote, programmed to attach to the crystalline hulls of the enemy vessels. "First package delivered," her science officer reported. "Probe swarm is active and transmitting." Lisa watched as 2 more of her ships were destroyed, each death releasing another cloud of invisible observers. The hegemony ships passed through the debris fields without concern, their crystal matrices unknowingly collecting the microscopic spies. The enemy commander finally deigned to communicate. Its voice resonated through their comm systems like breaking glass. "Your resistance is as pointless as it is amusing. Watch now as we demonstrate true power." 3 more human ships vanished in quick succession, their destruction almost artist in its efficiency. Lisa gritted her teeth, knowing each lost crew had volunteered for this mission, understanding the cost of their deception. "Probe coverage at 60%. Her science officer updated. "We need 2 more minutes for optimal distribution." Lisa keyed her command channel. "Charlie Squadron, begin your run. Make it count." The remaining ships launched what appeared to be a desperate attack on the largest crystal vessel, their weapons fire dissipating harmlessly against its crystalline hull. The hegemony ship's response was beautiful and terrible, a cascade of energy that turned space itself into a web of light. When the light faded, only Lisa's command ship remained. The enemy commander's voice came again, dripping with condescension. "We will preserve this recording in our archives. Let it stand as testament to the futility of primitive resistance." Lisa straightened in her chair. "Signal from Dr. Anderson," her comm officer reported. "Probe network is active and transmitting. All ships report successful delivery." "Send our response to the enemy," Lisa ordered. Her message was brief. "Thank you for the combat practice. We'll be sure to learn from this experience." She engaged her ship's quantum drive before the hegemony could respond, jumping back to the hidden fleet staging area near Neptune. As soon as she arrived, she transmitted to Project Echo's command. "Trojan Horse delivered. The network is active." On her display, she could already see the data flowing in from the probes. Detailed scans of the crystal ship's internal structure, their energy patterns, their resonance frequencies, each piece of information a note in the symphony of their destruction. The hegemony had just given Earth everything they needed to tear their empire apart, one crystal at a time. Lieutenant Mike Jazz Cooper hadn't touched his guitar in 3 weeks. The instrument sat in the corner of his lab, gathering dust, while he stared at the holographic display of hegemony ship frequencies. Something about the pattern nagged at him, like a half-remembered song. "Play the crystal resonance pattern again," he told the computer. But this time, convert it to audio. The lab filled with an eerie, harmonious tone that made his teeth vibrate. 20 years of musical training before he'd switched to quantum physics told him something was there, hidden in the harmonics. "Isolate the bass frequency," he said, his fingers moving in the air as if playing phantom chords. "Now show me the overtone series." Dr. Emily Anderson's voice came through his comm. "Mike, the hegemony fleet is moving toward Venus. We're running out of time." I know," he muttered, still conducting the air. But there's something here. These aren't just random frequencies. This is a composition. He grabbed his guitar, quickly tuning it to match the bass frequency. As he played along with the crystal song, his eyes widened. Holy hell. Emily, are you seeing this? Seeing what? Mike, we don't have time for. The ships aren't just alive. He cut her off, excitement breaking through his exhaustion. They're singing. The entire fleet is one giant resonance chamber, and they're all singing the same song. Colonel Murphy burst into the lab, looking like he'd aged years and days. Please tell me that actually means something useful, Lieutenant. Mike was already running calculations. Remember how a singer can shatter a wine glass by hitting the right note. We've been looking at each ship as a separate target, but they're all connected through their quantum framework. They're all part of the same symphony. He pulled up the data from Major Reynolds' probe network. Look at these patterns. Every ship in the fleet resonates with the same base frequency. If we can disrupt that, we can shatter them all at once. Murphy finished, his eyes lighting up with understanding. Exactly. Mike's fingers flew over the controls. But we need something more powerful than a singer's voice. We need a power chord from hell. Emily chimed in, finally getting it. We need to hit them with their own frequency, amplified and inverted. Murphy was already on his command channel. Get me the weapons division. Now. The next 48 hours were a blur of activity. Mike worked with the engineering team to convert their quantum harmonic generators into what he called crystal breakers, weapons that could emit the exact inverse of the hegemony's resonance frequency. They tested it on a small sample of crystal they'd recovered from the debris of a minor skirmish. The result was spectacular. The crystal didn't just break, it disintegrated into its component atoms. How many ships can we equip? Murphy asked as they watched the test footage. All of them, Mike replied. The beauty of this is that once we start the disruption, their own network will carry it through the entire fleet, like feedback through an amp, but on a quantum level. Emily's voice came through again, tense with urgency. The hegemony has reached Venus. They're beginning their resource extraction protocol. Their ships, they're starting to sing louder. Murphy looked at Mike. How long until the weapons are ready? Mike thought of his brother, one of the 10,000 lost on Mars. 24 hours. Maybe less. Make it 12, Murphy ordered. Because in 14 hours, they're going to start their mining operation on Venus, and I want them to hear our song before they fire a single shot. Mike grabbed his guitar, using it to help him fine-tune the final calculations. Soon, the hegemony would learn that humanity's primitive understanding of music would be their undoing. They had given Earth their symphony of destruction. It was time for the remix. Admiral Sarah Mitchell watched the evacuation ships leave Venus Station, their hulls gleaming in the sulfuric sunlight. To the hegemony sensors, they would appear packed with terrified civilians. In reality, each vessel carried a Special Forces team and one of Lieutenant Cooper's crystal breakers. First wave of refugees clearing Venus orbital space, her tactical officer reported. Hegemony fleet is responding. They're moving to intercept. Sarah allowed herself a grim smile. Right on schedule. Send the distress call. Her communications officer broadcast the carefully crafted message. This is Venus Station. We have 15,000 civilians evacuating. Please, we're no threat to you. We just want to reach Earth. The crystal ships moved with predatory grace, their geometric patterns shifting into attack formation. Their response came as expected. Primitive species will learn their place. Witness the price of defiance. All ships, hold formation. Sarah ordered through the secure channel. Let them think they have us. She watched as the massive crystal vessels surrounded her fleet, their weapon systems charging with that familiar, terrible light. The hegemony commander's voice filled every channel. Your attempts at preservation are futile. We will make an example of. Now, Sarah cut through the alien speech. Show them how primitives fight. The refugee ships transformed. Armored panels dropped away, revealing weapon arrays built around Cooper's quantum harmonic generators. Each device began to pulse with a deep, resonant energy that made the very fabric of space vibrate. All ships, begin the symphony, Sarah commanded. Lieutenant Cooper's voice came through from Project Echo Command. Match these frequencies exactly. 3, 2, 1. Play. The quantum harmonic generators activated in perfect synchronization. At first, there was no visible effect. Just a strange sensation that made everyone's bones vibrate. Then the nearest crystal ship began to sing. It started as a high-pitched whine that quickly built into a scream. Fracture lines appeared across its crystalline surface, growing like lightning bolts through its structure. The ship's own resonance joined the harmony of destruction, amplifying the effect. By the stars, someone whispered on the bridge as the first hegemony vessel shattered into a million glittering shards. The alien commander's voice returned, but now it held something new. Fear. What? What is this primitive magic? Not magic, Sarah responded. Music. She turned to her weapons officer. Increase power to the generators. Let's give them the full concert. The effect cascaded through the hegemony fleet. Ship after ship began to resonate, their crystal matrices unable to resist the harmonic assault. Some tried to retreat, but their own quantum-linked network betrayed them, carrying the destructive frequencies to every vessel in range. Dr. Anderson's voice cut through the chaos. Admiral, their flagship is attempting to reconfigure its crystal matrix. They're adapting. Sarah had been waiting for this. Deploy the secondary frequency, the one we calculated from their adaptation algorithms. A new harmony joined the symphony of destruction. The hegemony flagship's attempt to evolve its defense became its downfall, its new configuration, making it even more susceptible to the attack. The massive ship broke apart in a spectacular display, its fragments raining through Venus's upper atmosphere like a meteor shower. In less than 10 minutes, the space around Venus had become a graveyard of crystal shards. Only a few smaller hegemony vessels had managed to jump away, carrying with them the message that humanity was far from primitive. Sarah opened a channel to Earth Command. Venus space secured. Operation Symphony is a success. She paused, looking at the crystalline debris field. And Colonel, tell Lieutenant Cooper his music just saved 15,000 lives. She could already see Earth ships moving in to collect the larger crystal fragments. Soon, Dr. Anderson would begin the process of studying and reverse engineering what remained of the hegemony's technology. The real war was just beginning, but for the first time since first contact, humanity had hope. They had proven that even gods could bleed, or in this case, shatter. Captain David "Ghost" Rodriguez led his stealth squadron through the debris field that was once the hegemony's mining fleet. Their ships, painted with light-absorbing metamaterials, were nearly invisible against the backdrop of space. Ahead of them loomed their target, the hegemony command vessel, its crystal structure pulsing with nervous energy. Quantum signatures are getting stronger, his sensor officer reported. They're trying to adapt their resonance patterns. David nodded, watching the massive ship through his tactical display. Just like Dr. Anderson predicted. Send the data back to Lieutenant Cooper. Let's see how he likes their new song. The response came quick. Cooper's voice crackled through the secure channel. They're shifting their base frequency higher, trying to get out of our range. But they don't understand. They're just making the glass more brittle. The hegemony fleet had regrouped after their defeat at Venus, consolidating their forces near Saturn's rings. What they didn't know was that every shard of crystal from their destroyed ships was now acting as a resonance amplifier. turning their own debris field into a weapon. All ships, activate quantum harmonic generators, David ordered. Remember, we need to strike in perfect sync. Time your pulses with the count. His squadron moved into position, each ship carrying one of Cooper's enhanced crystal breakers. The weapons had been modified after Venus, designed to create a cascading resonance effect that would spread through the quantum-linked fleet like a virus. The hegemony finally noticed them. A warning shot lanced through space, missing David's ship by meters. The crystal command vessel's voice boomed through all frequencies. Your previous victory was an anomaly. We have evolved beyond your primitive harmonics. David smiled. Let's test that theory. All ships, fire on my mark. The squadron's generators powered up, each one tuned to a specific frequency in Cooper's destructive symphony. The space around them began to vibrate as the weapons found their resonance. 3, 2, 1. Execute Symphony Protocol. The effect was immediate and devastating. The first wave of quantum harmonics hit the command vessel's shields, creating a visible ripple through its crystal structure. The ship tried to adapt, its matrix shifting and flowing like liquid glass. But Cooper had planned for this. Second movement, David ordered. Hit them with a counter-frequency. As the hegemony ship changed its resonance to escape the first attack, it moved directly into the path of the second. The result was spectacular. Fracture lines appeared throughout its structure, growing and multiplying like lightning in a crystal sky. Their quantum field is collapsing, his science officer reported with barely contained excitement. The resonance is spreading to their support ships. Through his viewport, David watched as ship after ship began to break apart. The hegemony's vaunted neural network, which connected their entire fleet into a single crystal consciousness, had become their greatest weakness. The destructive harmonics traveled through their own communications links, shattering vessel after vessel. The command ship made one last attempt to fight back, firing a desperate barrage that dissipated harmlessly against their shields. Then its core finally reached critical resonance. The explosion was unlike anything David had ever seen. The massive crystal structure didn't just break. It disintegrated into its component atoms, creating a brief, beautiful display of light that outshone Saturn's rings. All ships report, he called out as the light faded. How many made it out? 3 hegemony vessels managed to jump away. His tactical officer replied, but they're badly damaged. And sir, we're picking up something interesting in the debris field. David looked at the readings and smiled. Well, would you look at that? Seems like we just captured ourselves some intact crystal memory cores. He opened a channel to Earth Command. Ghost Squadron to base. Operation Symphony is complete. And Dr. Anderson, we've got some light reading for you. The battle for Saturn was over. Now the real work would begin. Learning the secrets locked within the hegemony's shattered remains. Soon, humanity would have everything they needed to take the fight to the enemy's home systems. The primitives were about to go hunting. Dr. Emily Anderson stood before the recovered crystal memory core, its fractured surface still humming with quantum energy. 3 months of non-stop work had led to this moment. Behind her, Colonel Murphy and the Project Echo team watched in tense silence. Beginning final decryption sequence, she announced, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface they'd reverse-engineered from captured hegemony tech. The crystal core pulsed with internal light, its matrix reacting to their carefully calibrated quantum probes. Lieutenant Cooper monitored the harmonics. Resonance is stable. Whatever's in there, it's ready to talk to us. The core's surface suddenly erupted with projections, star charts, technical specifications, and historical records, all written in the hegemony's crystalline language that they'd finally cracked. My God, Emily whispered, reading the data streams. They've done this before, so many times before. The records showed everything. Centuries of the hegemony's civilizing mission across the galaxy. Dozens of species deemed primitive and harvested. Their worlds transformed into crystal gardens. Their people either eliminated or enslaved within the crystal matrix. Wait. Murphy pointed to a particular data stream. Focus on that sector. Emily zoomed in on the coordinates. It's their home system. And these are their weaknesses. She could hardly believe what she was seeing. The crystal ships, their entire empire. It's all connected through a central quantum network. One they never thought anyone primitive could access. Cooper let out a low whistle. Their strength really is their weakness. One big, beautiful, breakable crystal. Murphy was already moving. How quick can we adapt our ships with this new data? The crystal integration is already underway, Emily replied, bringing up schematics of Earth's modified fleet. We've been growing our own crystal matrices, but unlike theirs, ours are designed to be adaptable, independent. We're not making their mistake of linking everything into one breakable network. The colonel nodded, his expression grim. And the weapon upgrades. Cooper stepped forward, pulling up the specs for his enhanced crystal breakers, ready for full production. These new models don't just shatter their ships, they can subvert their control systems. We can turn their own crystal tech against them. How long until the fleet is ready? Murphy asked. 2 weeks, Emily said. Maybe less. The crystal growth process is accelerating as we better understand the technology. She paused, looking at the star chart. They never expected this, you know. In all their records, no primitive species ever turned their technology against them so quickly. Murphy's comm unit chimed. Admiral Mitchell's voice came through. Colonel, we're picking up large-scale quantum disturbances from the direction of the hegemony home systems. Looks like they're mobilizing everything they have. Let them come, Murphy replied. How many ships in our combat-ready fleet? 53, Mitchell reported. All equipped with the basic crystal integration. Another 100 in final stages of modification. Emily looked at the data streaming from the core. Colonel, there's something else you need to see. She pulled up a new set of coordinates. These are other species currently under hegemony control. Some have been fighting a guerrilla war for decades. If we transmitted our crystal-breaking technology to them, we could open multiple fronts, Murphy finished. Turn their own empire into a battlefield. He turned to his communications officer. Get me a secure channel to Earth Command. Tell them it's time for Phase 2. Emily watched as the crystal core continued to reveal its secrets. The hegemony had spent centuries building their perfect crystalline empire. They had never imagined that a primitive species would not only understand their technology, but improve upon it. Their fatal mistake had been assuming that humanity's greatest strength was their technology. They never understood that humans' true power lay in their ability to adapt, to take an enemy's strength and turn it into a weapon. The crystal core pulsed one final time, revealing the location of the hegemony's central control matrix. Emily smiled. It was time to show the galaxy that humanity had learned the hegemony song and written a better ending. 5 years after the first contact, Admiral Sarah Mitchell stood on the bridge of the Earth ship Vengeance, its hybrid crystal metal hull gleaming with quantum energy. The fleet behind her represented everything humanity had learned and improved upon from their former aggressors. Multiple quantum signatures detected, her tactical officer reported. The resistance forces are in position. The holographic display showed hundreds of ships surrounding the hegemony's home system, vessels from 24 different primitive species, all armed with Earth's crystal-breaking technology. Each had their own score to settle with the empire that had tried to erase their cultures. Colonel Murphy's voice came through the command channel. The Nomad clans are ready. The Silicon Collective is in position. Even the Void Dancers have joined us. He paused. Hard to believe these were all species the hegemony thought too primitive to even contact. Status of the enemy fleet, Sarah asked, watching the quantum readings from the hegemony's capital world. They've activated their central matrix, Dr. Anderson reported from her station. Every crystal ship in their empire is now connected to their home system. They think it makes them stronger. Lieutenant Cooper's voice joined in. They're playing right into our hands. The more they connect, the more vulnerable they become to our improved resonance weapons. Sarah opened a channel to all Allied ships. This is Admiral Mitchell. The hegemony believed us primitive. They thought our desire for peace was weakness. Today, we show them the true strength of unity. All ships begin the final symphony. The battle began not in normal space, but in the quantum realm. Cooper's enhanced crystal breakers activated across the Allied fleet, each ship contributing its own frequency to the destructive harmony. The hegemony's defense fleet responded with their own crystal technology, but they were fighting an enemy that had studied and improved upon their every weakness. They're attempting to adapt their resonance patterns, Emily reported, her fingers flying over her console. Implementing countermeasures now. The space around the hegemony capital lit up with quantum energy as ship after ship joined the battle. Crystal vessels shattered, their fragments adding to the cascade of destruction. But this time, Earth's forces weren't just destroying, they were converting. Cooper's latest innovation allowed their weapons to capture and repurpose the crystal energy, turning the hegemony's own power against them. Each destroyed ship strengthened the Allied fleet. The hegemony's supreme commander broadcasted across all frequencies. This is impossible. You are nothing but primitives. Sarah's response was calm. We were never primitive. We were patient. We were learning. And now we're teaching others how to break free. The final phase began. Emily activated the quantum virus they'd developed, targeting the hegemony's central matrix. Their own network, the source of their power, became their undoing. Crystal ships began to turn against their masters, their control systems rewritten by the primitive code that had evolved beyond their understanding. Their central matrix is destabilizing, Emily announced. The quantum cascade is beginning. Sarah watched as the crystal spires of the hegemony capital began to resonate with the same frequency that had once destroyed Mars Base 1. Poetic justice, written in light and sound. To all Allied ships, she broadcast. Clear the system. Let them experience the full symphony. The combined fleet jumped to safe distance, just as the cascade reached critical mass. The hegemony's capital world became a brief, brilliant star as its crystal technology imploded, taking their empire's central control with it. In the silence that followed, Sarah opened a channel to Earth. The hegemony has fallen. The alliance of free species stands ready to help rebuild. She looked out at the stars, knowing that humanity's role had changed. They were no longer the primitives fighting for survival. They had become teachers, protectors, leaders of a new galactic coalition. The symphony of destruction had ended. The song of freedom was just beginning.